My name is Dominik Obrecht and I will screencast my development process for my game Whispering Woods, which I developed in GameMaker, which you can see on the screen right now. So first of all, there's always the workspace, which is the one I'm currently in, where you can open the different objects you're working with. So here, everything happens. So I decided to do normal coding. There's also the possibility of visual coding, but I opted to normal lines of code. And on the other hand, there's the room editor where you can build your levels. So I opened up the level 0, so the introduction level, to kind of show around what the key elements of my game are. So first of all, I created a sprite for my tile set, which has every single tile I need in my game. And then I create an object out of the tile set where you can even add auto tiling. So I added the path as auto tiling. So you can just auto tile a path. It's really simple, really easy to use, and saved me a lot of time. And what I did was I always made a blue background for all the levels, and then I made different islands and I tried to make them in different heights, and sometimes the outer ones are barely visible. That's why I only decorated the part that it can be seen when the player is standing here, because the camera is always focused on the player. So the camera is always surrounding the player, so you can't get to these areas. And why you can't get there is because I added walls. There's two kinds of walls. Maybe I should open another room as well. Like this. There's two kinds of walls. There's yellow walls, normal walls, and there's red walls, which are solid walls. So I coded it that the player collides with all types of walls, so the player can't access the water. He has to go over the path. But my enemy, the UFO, as seen here, he's flying, so he can travel over yellow walls, but not over solid red walls. So the UFOs can chase the player easily over the water, which adds more difficulty to the game. So I just added a border around the map and where I don't want the player to go. So I don't want the player to go to these woods or this water. Then the next thing is these two kinds of walls. The green walls are teleportation walls, and they work by implementing creation code into the specific object instance, where I have a target room and the target object. And the target room is the next room in the order, so from room 0 to room 1, which would be the next level, this one. And the target object is the object the player should get teleported to. That's why I added a target object in the view of the player, because just easier to understand for me. But you take the object instance ID and then you add it as the target object, and when the player touches these teleportation walls, he will get transferred to room 1, and he will start the level on this specific spot, which is really easy to implement. And the other special wall is the red wall, which is a test if the player killed all enemy instances. So I have some general objects which I use in every level. And in the O HUD, not the O HUD, the O HUD. Yeah, sorry, O HUD. I was clicking on the wrong thing. So there's different events. So there's the create event, which is run once when the object is created. The step event, which is run in every frame. The draw, which is run in every frame as well, but it's only the drawing. And the room start and room end. So room start happens when a room starts, and room end is, of course, when the room ends. So in the room start one, I have global variables for all the most important enemy information. So there's always an enemy room maximum, active enemy maximum, total enemy spawned to count how many enemies are spawned, and enemy kill count. So if the total enemy spawned is smaller than the enemy room max, we continue to spawn enemies. But once the total enemy spawned, for example for this level, reaches 5, we don't spawn any more enemies. And the levels get gradually harder, so 5 is just the introduction level, so 5 enemies, 50, 100, 150, 250. And the last room is like the congrats room, so there are no enemies there. Yes. So you cannot walk through this wall if you haven't killed all enemies. And you can see that there is a counter 0 out of 5 because I didn't kill an enemy yet. But if I kill an enemy, the first one, it's 1 out of 5. But when I try to walk through here, I get the message, defeat all enemies to proceed. So it's like a safety feature that the player cannot just walk through level and level without ever killing enemies. So it's like an obstacle. Then the next thing is the spawner. I have 2 different spawners. So there's the trees where the aliens spawn. And there's also tree trunks, like here, where the slimes spawn. It's a different sprite, but similar functionality. So the enemy has, the spawner has a timer which counts down from 6 seconds. So every frame it counts down from 6 seconds. And if the timer is at 0, a new instance is created at this point. And the instance itself, in this example, the UFO, the instance itself gradually over the first 30 frames puts his alpha value from 0 to 1. So it like fades into the game. So it's not like a boop, I'm here. It slowly fades into the game to get a more original look, more realistic look. And then the thing is that the spawner needs a collision mask because we don't want the enemy, the player, to just be able to walk through the spawner. So if we see in the spawner, in the collision mask, there is a collision mask, so the player can't walk through the spawner. So it's a little bit more up because the player has to be able to walk here, because the collision mask is smaller in the player, so it looks like you can walk close to the tree, but the player shouldn't be able to just walk through it. And the major bug I got here was that the UFO spawned, but it spawned in the collision mask of the tree, so of the spawner. So it never moved, and all the enemies just stayed inside of the spawner. And that's why the enemies, they have a state machine. So in the first state, they just gradually increase their alpha, and then they move, I can show it here, they move for a certain amount of pixels, they just move downwards, and then they start shooting. So maybe I can visualize this in the game. So the enemy slowly fades in over, and then he moves downward, and then he chases. It's really visible. So if I stand here, even he will go down straight, and then he will start chasing me. Yes. So that's how I fixed this bug, which took me some time to realize why none of the enemies walked out of their spawner. Then the next one is the O explosion, my explosion object, which is, I think is really cool. It's a UFO egg incubator. And the sprite works that I have a full sprite, a little broken, more broken, and then I added the green inside part to notify the player that in 1 or 2 hits, the explosion will happen. It's a little tricky because the UFOs shoot bullets as well, and they can let the egg explode as well, but it's a visual cue for the player. And it just I will just show the step. So the health percentage shows which frame of the image should be shown, so of the sprite. So the more you shoot the the explosion pod, the more it like gets broken, and in the end it will just explode. And the last two important things are the player, which is my biggest object. So the player starts the background music because when there's no player, there's no game running. And I have a get damaged additional function I created where you can set the amount of life. And here's just the moving and variables. So in the step event, I have all the different keys. So the movement keys, the shoot key, the swap key, which is the right mouse button where you can change the gun, and the start key, which is the escape button. Then the movement is that the player moves in the direction of WASD, and the player like the sprite, and the direction of the gun is the direction of the mouse. So the movement is pretty simple. The only thing I had to change is that when the player is moving to the right and to the top, so a diagonal, I had to clamp the speed because he was walking faster in a diagonal than straight. So I had to clamp the max speed. And I implemented a running sound. So when the player is running, there's like a steps, and when the player stops for at least 2 seconds, there's like a heavy breathing sound to simulate the player is out of breath. Then just a collision with the different walls, and when the player dies, the instance game over screen is created, where it's just an overlay over the game, and a small explosion where the player is, and the player instance gets destroyed. And then when you restart the game, the player is created at the target, like at the teleportation target, which I said in the beginning. So the last thing is the decoration, which is really simple. So all these trees, mushrooms, crocodiles, trunks, rocks, I drew them as sprites. And then I have a parent system with the parent is the wall. So there's a collision with the player, for example, with this one, and the rock, which is big, there's a collision with the player and the UFO, because the UFO can't fly over this rock because it's too big. So the parent is the solid wall. And the drawings, I did them all by myself. And the last interesting object may be the crate, which is a box, a loot box. Same thing as the explosion. Over time, the life decreases, and here you can see it's only one hit from being exploded. And how I did it, there's like a random chance of loot dropping. So every time a crate is destroyed, I have a random chance between 0 and 100. And if the chance is in the first third, we drop a heart. If it's in the middle third, it's shotgun ammunition. And if it's in the last third, it's ray gun ammunition. So it's a little bit random, but still you know that you will get some loot, because in the later levels you need a lot of loot to pass, and you need a lot of ammunition. That's why I added a lot of loot crates in these last levels, because I think it's the cool aspect of the game is changing weapons all the time, because the first weapon has infinite ammo, but I really like the ray gun, and that's why I added a lot of crates everywhere, just so the player can use the weapons, because I really enjoy it myself. So yes, and that's about it. I think there's some important variables in OHUD, which are just the enemy variables. And yes, so maybe the last thing is how I built the maps. I always had a small vision for the map, and every decoration aspect, like every tree, their depth is the minus y of their position. So everything that is under another, like in the y-axis, this tree is under this tree, so it will appear in front of it, which is really useful for these top-down pixel art games. So it makes it really simple to build all the maps. And yes, so I think that's about it. I will go through the sounds. I didn't talk about them. It's really simple. It's just downloading, finding a sound, implementing it like this, and then you can just play the sound whenever you want to play it. So for example, when I kill an enemy, like when the HP of the enemy is below 0, I play the death sound for the UFO example, or the shoot sound when the weapon is shooting. And yeah, I guess that's about it. I think Game Maker is really, really cool to work with. I enjoyed the process a lot, and this course was really, really nice. I worked about 200 hours on the game, and I did it alone, so I could just follow through with my vision, which I had from the beginning, which changed a lot over the time I developed the game still. But I am actually pretty proud of what I could achieve in these like 2 months. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, and I think I will even work on it a little bit more, maybe add some more levels, some more enemies and weapons, because with the system I implemented, it's really done easily. Yeah, I hope I could give some insight in my development of my game, and I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, I wish you all a great time. See ya.